that will be,
My apologies. I forgot to start the recording earlier.
that's okay. The McDonald's, the new restaurant that is being proposed for the site would be substantially shorter than, I mean, we're proposing a height of 36 feet more or less, where a height of 65 feet is permitted in the MU7B zone. And then the restaurant would be 5,000 square feet. So it would fall well below the maximum density that's permitted in the MU7B zone. So again, the purpose of the rezoning is not to max out the development of the site. And then this slide just shows the standard of review. So again, the zoning commission will look to see if the proposed MU7B zoning is not inconsistent. That's the actual language, not inconsistent with the property's designation on the comprehensive plan. And in this case, again, if you look at the application, but also the language in the comprehensive plan, the MU7 zone is specifically called out for the land use designations. So I will just conclude this portion of our discussion with the zoning process that's ahead of us. Commissioner Lucia, we talked about having the application presented to the full ANC this month. That would be May 25th. And then the Office of Planning has recently assigned, or the Office of Zoning has recently assigned a number to this case. So it will be transmitted to the Office of Planning, who will prepare a preliminary report to the Zoning Commission. And then the commission will decide whether or not to set down the application for public hearing. We expect that to happen around June, just based on our experience. We've estimated that the application will be set down around June. In response to the set down, we'll file a pre-hearing statement and then expect a public hearing before the Zoning Commission in September or October.
And you will notify us when those happen, right?
Absolutely. So Commissioner Lucio, you'll be copied on all of the correspondence that we file to the Zoning Commission. And if you ever feel that, you know, we should come back to the community once we're well into this process, I'm comfortable saying on behalf of McDonald's that they'll be happy to do so.
Okay, thank you. And just to let everybody know, I always put the PowerPoints on the website, so they will be on the website. And so I'll just need you, Leila, to send me a copy of that when you're done.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for presenting that. I want to, before we open it up for questions, I want to ask a couple questions myself. My first question is if you're changing the zoning, I guess I want to make sure I'm clear on why you would need to change the zoning if you're not planning on making any adjustments. Can you just clarify that a little bit more in terms of why that's needed?
Yeah, because right now, without the rezoning on the property, the drive-through is not permitted for fast food establishments. It's only when you get to the MU7 zoning that fast food establishments are permitted to have a drive-through. So with a lower zoning category, MU5, the regulations state that their fast food establishments are permitted, but there are restrictions specifically related to the drive-through. And so that's the reason that we need the MU7 zoning.
Okay, so thank you. That's my first question. My second question is given this change in status of the rezoning, obviously it does allow for additional development. So how can we be assured that there is no future plan to add any redevelopment to that?
Well, what we can do is, and I know that they don't have the plans finalized, but really when they go in for permit, you will see the actual, they'll design the intent is to design a building and drive-through that complies with the like the matter of right requirements for the MU7B zone. And so you would be able to see that through the permitting process. And we'd be happy to present that to the plans if they're, renderings of the building. I think maybe ready as early as the ANC meeting, and then we can come back to you. If not, or even if they are, we can come back to this group as part of the permitting process.
And when you say plans would be ready by the end of this month, the ANC meeting at the end of this month?
Yes, so renderings of the proposed restaurant.
What about the ones that have been up for a while in the McDonald's?
I haven't seen the renderings that have been up in the McDonald's.
This is
Right.
Rob.
Good evening, Mr. Alvarez. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Those plans we put up in what, 2000? Those are our 2016 plans that McDonald's had. So that put the facade of what the proposed facade would look like. The only slight changes that McDonald's has had to their building has been a change in color. So as far as how that site plan looks, that was just generic. That wasn't made just for the store. It was just to show what a modernized restaurant would look like. Only thing that would be different are the color schemes, which I would have the option of choosing if the neighborhood, we would put a green and orange store there. It would still fit into the neighborhood brick look. So that plan is still what McDonald's construction looks like.
Okay, thank you. And I will plan on having you guys attend the main meeting, so I appreciate that. Okay, so I'm going to open it up for questions. I'd like, as I said, everyone to raise hands. If you're on the phone, I believe you have to do *9. Yep, *9 to raise and lower your hand. So I'm going to open it up for questions. Let me enlarge my screen here so I can see everybody. Are there questions?
Commissioner, if I can just answer, there's a question in the chat about the difference between the FAR associated with the zoning classifications. Robert, the answer to your question is that's correct. The change in zoning is not being sought for the additional density. So if we're proposing 5,000 square feet, I apologize, I didn't do this math beforehand, but I can calculate the density. This is a 21,000 square foot site. John, is that the correct 21,000 square feet?
Yep, that's correct.
Great. And for those of you who joined late, I just want to make sure, I'm just invite two other people in. For those of you who joined late, we're in the middle of the McDonald's presentation, and if you're from another ANC or a single member district in the area, welcome. We are welcome to stay for this meeting, but once we finish this topic, we're going to move on to stuff that's specific to the ANC from my single member district. Even though this is in my single member district, I'm happy to have neighboring residents here on the call since it affects all of us. Okay, I'm going to start with Peter Bishop. Go ahead, Mr. Bishop.
Yeah, thank you, Emily. Hey, look, on the slide that you put up, showing the what is allowed under MU7B.
Yes.
It's hard for me to tell which one of those things allows for drive-through. So could you just tell us how that's
I'll go back. So it's this provision here, section subtitle U, section 515.1 of the zoning regulations. That's the use provision that is driving this application.
Peter, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, if you can go back to the full screen, Lila, I'd appreciate it. So I can see everybody.
Oh yeah. Okay, let me do this. All right.
Thanks. Okay. Carmen.
Thank you, Emily. I have two questions. The first one is, by changing the zoning, it's changed by the lot in the square. The lot in the square for the property where McDonald's is extends to the adjoining property and part of the church, Faith United Church. If you are able to change the zoning, that would leave way for the other property owners to do other development other than, than what is currently there today. Would that be correct?
No, so those properties, the change on those properties along with the McDonald's property was not a change in zoning. It was a change on the land use designation under the comprehensive plan. So the land use designation is one element of kind of the site entitlements, but in order to effectuate the land use designation, they would have to go through a rezoning as well. They're not part of our zoning application. So I think they are zoned RA2, maybe the sites to the rear. They're not even zoned MU3A. So there's
property is zoned as RA2, but the other property is zoned the same as McDonald's is zoned.
right.
So if McDonald's has chosen not to do an additional development, but the zoning is changed for the total property, that would lead way for the other property owners to do additional building.
But McDonald's, this application that only includes the McDonald's site. It doesn't include the other properties.
It only includes McDonald's, but McDonald's also owns the other land that's next to it.
Oh, you're talking about the parcel on the other side of the alleys. That's what you're referring to.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
You're correct, but that property, I'm sorry, that property is not included in this application either.
But because it's part of the lot in the square, you could come back and do additional building on that land.
If we wanted to do anything with that site, we would have to come back to the ANC and the BZA. We couldn't just do anything on it as a matter of right now.
Not right now, but once the zoning is changed, you could come back to do it.
Yeah, but we're not changing the zoning on that site.
You're changing it on the lot in the square though.
No, we're only changing it on the lot where the McDonald's site is located. That's a different lot. The lot that you're speaking of, the wooded lot to the rear, has a different lot number than the McDonald's.
I don't think
site.
she's, Cameron, are you talking about the wooded lot or the lot next door with the strip mall?
It's the lot next door with the strip mall and the piece behind it. The strip mall is part of that same piece.
It's part of the same square. It's not the same lot though.
But it is part of the same square. So if the zoning is changed for that square, that would give way for the owners of that property to build additional in that area. Is that correct?
Yeah, if they change the zoning for that lot, we're not changing the zoning for the square. We're only changing the zoning for our lot. I think you're referring to the land use designation under the comprehensive plan was changed for the square. That's correct. But that's not the same as zoning. Now they could separately seek file an application to rezone their lot, but that's not part of what we're doing tonight or talking about tonight. That would have to be a separate application.
I have one additional question. Initially, when McDonald's came to the community and the community voted for McDonald's to get the drive-through, the vote was based on getting an exception. It wasn't going back to changing the zoning. The vote was for them to get an exception to have the drive-through. Is that still not possible?
It is not possible because since that time, and I know this has been around a long time, the zoning regulations have changed. So it may have been like there was a point in time where it was a special exception, but the regulations, I think ZR 16 has come about, and then there were changes within ZR16. And on top of it, I believe that the Office of Planning was not supportive of what was going to be a variance to allow for the drive-through. And it's not that the Office of Planning isn't supportive of the concept of a drive-through, but when they look at the legal standard of review, again, looking at the legal standard of review, in order to approve a variance, you have to demonstrate a practical difficulty or hardship. And so requesting a variance was not it couldn't be supported. The drive-through couldn't be supported under that legal standard of review, which is why the Office of Planning suggested and supported changing the comp plan to allow for the MU7 zoning district. That was a long time ago when you guys talked about
It was 2007. But you all never came back to the community to say that you couldn't get the exception.
I'm sorry, I wasn't even involved at that point, but I will say that that was the reason why they went through the process to amend the comprehensive plan. And I'm sure you're aware, that was a 4-year process. That was a very long process.
It was a long process, but you all came back to the community with something else that we didn't vote on. And that was the changing to the zoning.
Well,
the community never voted for that. The community voted for the exception for the McDonald's to get the drive-through.
Yeah, but that application was never filed. There was never an application filed for a variance or a special exception for the drive-through.
But I'm saying that's what the community voted on. The community voted the approval for that exception, but not for the zoning change, because that never was brought back to the community for the community to vote. You all came back to the community and said, this is what you're going to do. And the community had not voted on that.
Right.
That's the thing. So what I am going to do is I will invite you all back to the North Michigan Park community so the community as a whole can hear what you all say.
We're happy to go back.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Okay, I think there's a couple other questions in the chat. Uchenna, do you want to ask your question?
I didn't have a question. I was just making a suggestion for the ANC, which is, the applicant will put whatever it needs to put in the application, but you all are certainly free to put in your understanding of why this change is being requested and what they told you. And you could even put, the date and time of the meetings that you all held, and that this is your understanding of why the request is being changed. And that, in addition to working with them during the permitting process.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for saying that. Okay, other questions for the representatives from McDonald's?
There was a question of, do we have a specific month or time of year?
Yeah, I think that was for when we did the thing in 2017. I can't pull it up right now because I've got 2 other screens open, but I can, it's on so the document that we approved was back in 2017 is on the ANC 5A website for people who want to go back and find it.
That's when the ANC did their vote. We did our vote in 2016. It was either 2015 or 16 when North Michigan Park did it, because it was a long time between when they came to the community and then they went to the ANC.
Okay, I believe Jackie has a question.
Hi, yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So my question is with the timeline. To me, it seems like the community has different priorities and has changed over time. And I think the decision that was made 7 years ago or 5 years ago should be reevaluated with the people who currently are in the community, representing the community. And so I look forward to further discussion with respect to the North Michigan Park Association. but as with this project as a whole, not just rezoning.
So thank you, Ms. Kessel. I just clarify. So this is the ANC part of the meeting. So we can do that as well. We can talk through it as well. We're going to have them at the ANC meeting. And so, there's two separate organizations. We're talking about North Michigan Park Civic Association and the ANC, and they play two different roles. And so we can talk about it from both perspectives. But your point is well taken. So I appreciate that, because the neighborhood has changed a lot in the last few years. Lisa.
Yes, thank you. I have a question, and I'm not sure if this is the proper form, but my question is about the parking that has been impeded on the 800 block of Delafield Street. Does that have to do with the rezoning of the McDonald's lot?
I am not.
There was
certain.
a thing put back a while ago about signage on that street, about the entranceway, I believe it was. I'm trying to remember when we did that.
Yeah, so what they have done, they have taken away about maybe about 5 to 7 spots on the right-hand side
Yeah.
of, well, the left-hand side of McDonald's, but the right-hand side of that one-way street on Delafield, which is impeding our parking right here in this area.
Okay. Well, I can tell you it doesn't have to do with the rezoning application. I don't even
Okay.
know if it's related to McDonald's at all.
I have a vague recollection that I thought it was. This came up at an ANC meeting several years ago. I'd have to go back and refresh my memory and look at my notes. But this was brought to the community's attention. I thought it was brought in relation to the McDonald's. I may be wrong. Uchenna, do you remember?
I don't. I'd had to go back and look at my notes as well.
Yeah.
What is the question? regarding that?
The question is that they've taken parking away from about 10 houses right here.
Right.
On the right-hand side of Delafield Street.
Actually, Miss Lisa, now I remember, now I'm recalling what that was about, and it's not related to the
Okay.
McDonald's.
Okay.
It's related to the sight lines for that turning onto South Dakota. That was a DDOT thing based on a traffic safety study, nothing to do with the McDonald's.
Nothing to do with McDonald's. Okay.
Nothing to do with McDonald's.
Okay,
Yep.
we'll need to go through DDOT. Okay,
Yep,
thank you
that
very
went through
much.
DDOT. Yep, and I'm happy, and Miss Lisa, I'm happy to talk with you about that offline if you want to.
And it's
Okay.
on the right-hand side, has nothing to do with the sight lines. That was,
Okay,
that was to make it a right turn lane.
Right, I believe that's right, Deb. They were going to make that a right turn lane, but so we can talk about that offline. I can try and go back and find that information and we can do that.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank
Yep,
you.
no problem. Robert, you have a question? Mr. Oliver?
Yes, it's not so much a question as it is a statement. I think what this whole episode shows is that the ANCs and the Civic Association, when we have long-term projects like this, every so often they should let the community know where that project stands. They may need to have someone, kind of babysit it and maybe quarterly just say, this is going on with the project now because this is had occurred so long and so many things have changed. Also, when individuals come and ask about these projects, I think that the response should be, we'll look into it, other than the responses that some individuals have gotten. But that's neither here nor there now. I'm just glad that everyone is up to speed. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Oliver. Okay, are there other questions? Oh, Uchenna, you have a question.
Yeah, just one other suggestion, and knowing that I don't live in this SMD, but also just a suggestion is if it would be possible just to have a basic FAQ sheet for people so that you all don't have to constantly answer the same questions that people are going to have. For example, does the McDonald's intend to build housing? Is this going to change the zoning for the properties nearby? Those types of questions that you can just post on the ANC's website, just so that people understand the scope of the application and the impacts.
I think that's a great idea, Uchenna. And can you get that and get that to me, and I will absolutely post that on the website. Thank you. Deb.
Yeah, I do have one other question, and it does relate to Delafield. At one point, they were talking about closing the exit for cars to exit off of the McDonald's lot onto Delafield. Is that involved at all in their discussions?
No, that is not part of the rezoning. The McDonald's team, though, is scheduled to meet with DDOT within the next week or so, and they will talk about site circulation, that it will be part of the discussion. So, but that's not part of the rezoning, again, because as for a rezoning application, site plans are not part of the application or reviewed by the zoning commission. They will be reviewed by DDOT as part of the permitting process.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions? So hearing none or seeing no hands raised. So thank you very much for coming tonight. Just to clarify, we are expecting you to present at the May meeting. So just be in touch with me and I will get you the link to that. In the meantime, if you can make sure to send me a copy of the PowerPoint, and if you can also prepare an FAQ sheet for the community, I think that would be helpful. I think you have a good sense of some of the questions that should be on there based on the meeting tonight. And then you should also probably be expecting a outreach from Ms. Carmen Williams about coming to present at the North Michigan Park Civic Association, either at their monthly meeting or a special meeting. Their meeting is usually the first Wednesday of every month.
And Commissioner Lucio, can I get Ms. Williams' contact information from you?
I can send that to you. Yes,
Thank
absolutely. Just what I'll do is I'll send an email and put both of you on copy.
Okay.
After we're done.
Okay, perfect.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions about the McDonald's? Okay. So for those of you who are here tonight for the purpose of the McDonald's, thank you so much for coming. We appreciate it. And we will now resume our regularly scheduled broadcast with the rest of the agenda. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you all. So for residents of my single member district, I appreciate that. We are going to move on to presentation from Jason about EYA from EYA, who is going to talk about the art that's going to be installed on the community playground, and he's also going to give an update on the playground. So Jason or Charles, do either of you need screen sharing?
I do. Yes, Emily.
Okay.
How you doing? Good evening.
I'm
everyone.
good, thanks. Jason, how are you? I understand Evan is on the call as well, I believe.
Yeah, he must be feeling a little better. He's
I heard, so
quite
sorry,
under
Evan,
the
I heard you
weather.
have COVID a little bit, so sorry about that.
It went around the office the past week or so, and a lot of folks got it. So he's doing better.
You know, I think I've heard more and more cases are popping up all over the place. It's kind of crazy. You thought we
Yeah.
were through this, and now I hear all these cases popping up.
Yeah, and I think there was a lot of underreporting because there were a lot of people with mild symptoms and allergies, and I think it's spreading a little bit, but it definitely hit us at our office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jason, you should have screen sharing. So thank you. So you're gonna
Yep.
start the playground?
I can. It
Doesn't matter, whatever you want to start with.
let me go through the art stuff. We have Charles here, and
Yeah, I'm sorry. Actually, I meant the art stuff.
yeah, this isn't too detailed, and then we can get to the playground. So as Emily said, and I know a lot of you, I'm Jason Serino with EYA, Vice President of Development. Evan Goldman's here as well with EYA, who all of you have seen over the course of years. And then we're introducing Charles Bergen, our artist on the project, born and raised in DC, lives in Brookland, and going over kind of our process and where we are on the art. So just for everyone's benefit and a reminder and overview of the requirement for the art, it was focused on the west side of the cemetery or in the playground area of the park. And so that would be this area. This is the west side of the seminary, and then the West Lawn Park here. The artist that we work with had to reside in Washington, DC. And as I mentioned, Charles is a lifelong resident and current resident in Brookland. The art has to be completed by the 40th townhome occupancy. And so We are tracking that sometime in August this year. So we'll look to have the art installed prior to that. And then we must spend $25,000 for design, completion, and installation. And currently we're frankly about double that amount on where we ended up here on the art, but that's all right. It made for a better art installment along the 12th Street frontage. So what we did is we focused primarily on the frontage of the West Lawn Park, not so much of the west side of the seminary, because it's a really heavily public activity node. There is high visibility in that location on 12th Street. It's a beautiful tree-lined street, as everyone knows. And then it gave us the opportunity to break up the fence that we had to put along the West Lawn Park for safety reasons, obviously with a children and young kids playground there. It gave us an opportunity to break up that long 200-foot stretch, kind of a monotonous fence with some artwork. And that the area bubbled in red here is the area where we focused on, where the fence is located, that runs parallel to 12th Street. So as I mentioned, we've engaged Charles Bergen with Charles Bergen Studios, lifelong resident, Brookland. He provides figurative and representational art that focuses on public art, architectural design, animals, and figures. And with that, Charles, I'll give it to you to kind of give a little bit of an intro of yourself and the work that you do.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Jason, and good evening, everyone. Yeah, so I grew up here in Washington, and I'll be 60 next year. I can't believe it myself. So I've done a lot of different things. I grew up here in DC, and I was really first a wood carver and a sculptor. And then when I got to college and I was trying to figure out how to make a living, I became an architect. But all through that time, I've always enjoyed telling stories with my art. And I work in a variety of metals, as well as wood, and found objects, and even did some thermoplastic materials on the crosswalk in Chinatown, that big dragon art walk in Chinatown, which unfortunately was covered up during the pandemic, or destroyed during the pandemic, was one of my pieces. But nearby, you've probably seen a lot of my artwork at Dance Place, the fun bike racks, which spell art on 8th, and then which are on the upper right-hand corner here, and then the turtle, which is on the left-hand corner, which is a sprinkler too, so the kids can play in it. They really like that. I did these aren't pictured, but I did the Rhode Island Avenue trolley trail call boxes, or the Rhode Island Avenue trolley call boxes. You saw the one earlier with Bo Diddley, that bronze relief of Bo Diddley singing and playing his guitar. The one to the right there, the big red and yellow artwork, is anyone who bikes would have seen that. There are 4 of them. They're out in Riverdale Park, College Park, and there are 2 in Hyattsville along the Rhode Island Trolley Trail bike path there. I did a fairly comprehensive history of the River Terrace. There are 18 medallions that told the history of River Terrace from 10,000 years ago to the present. The one you see in the picture, the lower left, portrays the Native American tribes that were there early on, and they found a lot of remains there at the school, and apparently kids in the 50s often found arrowheads and other stone pieces there. So it's very much a presence there. I've done some work overseas as well. I was lucky to be selected to do some metal artwork in the lower right-hand corner for the British Normandy Memorial, which opened last year. The artist, Liam O'Connor, had seen this red artwork, this Capylosaurus chasing a Falcarius, which is a sort of fun piece of artwork down on Capitol Hill, and he really liked it. So he wanted me to do these panels which tell the history of what happened on D-Day on that beach. And this one is Gold Beach, which is one of the English beaches, and there are 4 others that each one points to a beach. And it was powerful for me. My father actually was involved with World War II. He was a paratrooper, and I even tried to put him in the artwork at one point, but that didn't go. So I've done a bunch of different things, and it was really a pleasure to be asked by EYA to do work in the neighborhood. I really enjoy doing that. I can walk over and look at the site. I've always admired that seminary building, and it's nice to see that new neighborhood getting developed. Jason, we could probably go on to the next image.
Thank you, Charles.
That was good.
I appreciate that. That's a great introduction.
Sure.
To you.
Sure.
So as we've been mentioning, this is kind of a blow up view of the West Lawn park that we're building on 12th Street. And so outlined here in red is the fence that's just about 200 feet long. And then in the lower left corner of this slide here, you can see the fence. We went after some time in working with Charles and figuring out that we actually wanted to install the art on the fence. We went away from an aluminum fence for this segment here, this 200 feet that runs parallel to 12th Street, and went more with a ornamental iron fence, one to support the artwork, but two, it gave that tree-lined street a little bit of an elegant feel, and tied back more to the long established and kind of history of the neighborhood. So you'll see, not only the artwork, but an ornamental fence in this location as well. And then at the end of the fence, so on the very bottom of the screen here, you can see that the fences are also capped. And I apologize, I hit the wrong button. The fences are also capped with brick piers at the end so that they don't just kind of die into nowhere. It gives a clean and nice finish with a red brick cap on each end. So with that, our kind of inspiration for this, we went and kind of did with Charles, and Charles went and visited the seminary and kind of went through their records. We started digging through their material, and we kind of got to a place where we didn't want to get political or religious in the artwork. This was, framing this development and this park for the community and for children. And so we really looked to, what always drew our attention to this area where the art would be installed. And frankly, it's the trees, and it's the tree-lined street, and then, a deeply rooted neighborhood in DC that's been long established. So we used those elements as kind of our inspiration for how we came up with the artwork. And obviously, folks who've been following the development know of the importance and the efforts to save the trees on 12th Street, and specifically the large oak tree that's pictured in the middle here next to the seminary building. So that was our inspiration for this. And what we're showing here and what we're planning on is we're proposing 2 medallions. You saw some other examples of the medallions that Charles creates. And what we would do is in the middle kind of fence line here, this location here, we would alternate those every 3rd panel all the way down the 200-foot fence line. And so the square medallion here in the top left is tied to the location in DC and Michigan Park. It shows the medallion in black with the Michigan Park DC lettering in gold. Obviously, the line work in this piece of art really plays off of the DC flag as well. And then the circular medallion and the second medallion, those are oak leaves, and the one in black here shows a singular acorn. There's also an option here for one with an additional acorn that would be in the top. As we've started looking at this, we actually are kind of leaning towards the one with the additional acorn in that location. And so on the bottom here in color, I just kind of showed these. We had played around with pairing them together and putting them in different locations along the fence line. We looked at using various colors. At one point, we had it as red and green alternating. And for anybody who's been by the site now that the playground piece is out there knows that the playground itself actually provides a lot of color and pop to that area with the burgundy or maroon framing, and then the tips and the caps all in orange, bright orange or lime green. So that itself provides a lot of playfulness to the area, and we felt putting color in the art would be a little overboard with that. We really like the idea of creating this elegant streetscape as you walk down the sidewalk on 12. So that is the update on where we are with the art. Obviously, with our requirement to have this installed prior to our 40th settlement, which would be in August, we are planning to move quickly on this. And it is a contingent on getting the ornamental fence installed as well, which kind of dovetails pretty well into the next topic and where we are with the playground. But and I'll go to the playground slide. But before I go there, does anybody have any questions on the art itself? And then I can give a playground update.
Thank you, Jason. That was a great presentation. Is there a time when we're going to see more current renderings of what exactly you're going to be putting there?
Yeah, so we were actually working on the colors just the past couple days, and so we'll work with Charles a few things, right, to make sure we get the sheen on the metal for the black and the color of the gold, and the, you know, is it more metallic versus muted on the gold. We'll be working with him to make sure we're finalized on all those colors, and then we'll have a final layout and we can share that with you. But it will be the every third alternating fence panel with the black medallions that alternate between the square and the circular one.
Great. Thanks. So hopefully you'll come back to us at some point with the more finished, renderings at some point, right?
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly circulate those. They'll be done in a couple days. It is going to look very similar to what we have here. What they do. So those medallions are they're done in CAD, and then the CAD work is sent over to a metal worker who, and Charles, correct me if I say anything incorrect here, but they laser cut the artwork straight from the drawings that you saw on this slide. So these are CAD renderings, and they'll take them directly from there and laser cut those panels. Charles, can you remind me what's the size of these? I want to say it was 30. Was it?
Yeah,
30
they're about 30 inches. We wanted a little bit. The fence itself is 42 inches tall, so that gives you a sense of what it is. I think they're 2 foot on the square is 2 foot on the side, I think is what it ended up being.
Yeah, so they're rather large medallions that would, kind of anchor down these fence panels and be a prominent piece along there.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, if there are no questions, I don't see any hands up. Are there any hands? Am I missing anybody?
I think,
I think we can move on to the playground update.
I see Lorenz's hands up.
Oh, go ahead, Lorenz.
Yeah, so a little off topic here. I had this discussion with Emily not just a few not too long ago. And the last time I heard about a development, it was speculated as a rumor, which was the development that is now underway. And so
Lorenz, we're not going to get into that right now.
No, I have to ask the question because
we're talking, Lorenz, we're talking about Lorenz.
You have the two personnel there that are involved with acquisition and development.
Lorenz, we're talking about the art coordination right now. We're going to talk about the playground update right now. And then we can talk about can you just hold off for a minute, and then we can ask other questions not related to this.
Well, okay. So is EYA going to stay for the rest of the meeting is the question.
No, but we're not done with the EYA presentation yet.
Okay, well, I'll hold off with my question after this part of the presentation.
Okay, thanks. All right. Jason, go ahead and talk about the playground update, please.
Yeah, so the playground, I know you're all anxiously awaiting, and thank you, for being patient. We've had obviously some supply chain issues, as has the entire industry, but we're looking to open the playground on May 27th. It is, I'm going to go back to this slide. So we will have the fence installed. There's an aluminum fence that comes off of the ornamental fence that runs behind the playground itself. That will be in and installed prior to the 27th. Obviously, a lot of the playground pieces are out there. And then if needed, if we don't have the ornamental iron fence that is shown here in the bottom left of this page, we will install a temporary fence along 12th Street so the playground can be opened by that date. We also anticipate that the drainage, I know there's been a drainage issue out there. What we've uncovered is that when we placed the drainage for the playground, the area was capped basically in a clay cap. And so the groundwater is coming up from where we put the underneath the piping that we use to drain any rainwater that would come down in the playground. It's just seeping up through that location. So we're working on a solution to fix that as we speak. And then on the 27th, we ordered the benches, and there's some seating areas and tables many months ago, and we believe they'll be in the next couple of weeks. They are on back order. If not, we will still open the playground without those, and then they'll be installed later. They only take a day to put in once we get those in. But May 27th is the date we're shooting for to have that open for the community.
Is that the day we're planning on doing the ribbon cutting ceremony?
That I don't know, Evan. I know you're on. I don't know what communication you've had, and if Cheryl started that outreach yet to organize that.
Excuse me. Yeah, I was just gonna say we should. Why don't we give a week or so of fluff there, just in case we're a day or two late on getting it open. But yeah, we should start scheduling now probably for the first week of June, and do kind of a ribbon cutting. So I'll coordinate with you, and also your neighboring ANC member Colleen was interested in being involved in that event as well.
Yeah, and we had talked about possibly doing it on a Saturday to make sure that there will be plenty of people there. So sometime that early part of June, like the 4th or 11th,
that'd be great.
We can talk because we got to work around my schedule, which may be complicated, but let's see what we can do.
Okay, so we'll reach out to you now that we've got a final opening date. Jason and I will reach out to you tomorrow. We can start coordinating that event.
Okay, that's great. So, but just to be clear, I just want to understand, you are going to actually unofficially open the playground before we do the ribbon cutting. Is that correct?
Yeah, and then we'll do the ribbon cutting a week later, just in case it gets delayed. That way we don't have to reschedule.
Okay. Okay. All right, great. Okay, thank you. All right, so obviously we have EYA on the call. We did not have anything planned for them to provide any other updates, Jason, or
Stop sharing.
Yeah, thanks. Okay. So I don't want to monopolize too much time on this topic. We have a huge agenda tonight. But Mr. Wheatley, go ahead and ask your question. I believe Evan's going to try and answer your question.
Okay, so actually I had another question as well. So let me deal with the development as it stands now. As I walk up Allison Street, I'm looking at the last set of, I guess, concrete footprints for this development. And is that where the IZ housing is going to be?
No, the affordable units are spread throughout the entire development. So there's units all throughout. In fact, I don't think any of the IZ units are facing towards Allison.
So I want to just follow up on that real quick, because I was asked that question the other day, and that's how I responded, because that's how I thought it was. So for the residents who are eligible for that housing, they can somewhat choose. There are different models and different types within their price point, correct? They're dispersed throughout, correct?
Yeah, there's 10 affordable units, some of which are 4-bedroom units, some of which are 3-bedroom units. They're spread throughout the development, some of which are right, at the seminary with rear yards. There are some facing towards 12th Street. There's some facing towards the new internal streets. And that's something we typically do in development, where you spread the affordable units throughout all of the project, so that there's not kind of one affordable area.
Yep, I appreciate that.
The locations are set, but there's different AMI levels and tiers, and where they end up in the units. Then the 10 locations that were set with the PUD plan are as we go through the selling of those units.
Great, thank you.
Okay, and then I guess the other question was the fact that I heard now that EY is somewhat in a position, or is looking at actually acquiring some of the property, if not doing a development at the Providence on the Providence Hospital campus.
Yeah, so I'll address that. This is Evan, and I apologize, I'm not on camera. I've got COVID, so I'm not looking my best. Yeah, so we have not, we have a very good relationship with Providence. We meet with them pretty regularly, and we've been meeting with them regularly throughout our development process. They had put out a request for submission of potential development partners probably 2 years ago, which we did respond to, and that might be what you've heard about. We've not been formally accepted or deemed the developer of that site. We've given them some advice or helpful hints over the years, given our experience having developed the Josephites property. Excuse me, especially given that the site will likely have residential on it. But we do talk to them regularly, and to the extent we get selected sometime to partner, we will certainly be meeting with all of you immediately. But there's nothing to report there.
Thank you, Evan. And Evan, I just want to make sure clear on the record that in the event that you all do end up developing that land, as I'm sure you're aware, and something else we're going to be talking about tonight, the Kennedy School is going to be developing their property. We hope that, I would hope that whoever takes on that responsibility of Providence would work with the people who are developing the Kennedy School property, because that's a huge piece of land, and we want to make sure that there are enough benefits to the community with both those parcels of land.
Yeah, totally. We agree. I mean, we have in what we had submitted to Providence for redevelopment on the site, just to give you all an example, based upon the experience we had going through the Josephites approval process, we kind of guided them towards a few key things. Number one, significant open space, that there should be a playing field, there should be, a dog park and real amenity and open space for the community, because we heard throughout the Josephites process that it's something that the community really wanted. We told them that they should expect to do a larger percentage of affordable housing than what is required by the city, and that affordable housing, in addition to affordable housing for seniors, was something that's really needed in the community. We made sure they understood about traffic concerns. One of the reasons they met with us specifically was about 12th Street and the 12th and Allison intersection. They wanted to understand what we were doing as part of our project. So we gave them some guiding principles that we think could be helpful for redevelopment, and to the extent they go forward, we would want to work with all of you. And quite frankly, to kick things off differently than they were kicked off with the Josephites project. I think, Lorenz, you may recall that you guys were caught by surprise on that, and we want to make sure that that's not the case if this were to happen again, if we were to be tied to it. And we'd like to be meeting with all of you regularly if we end up being the developer.
Yeah, I guess my concern was, as we were going through the whole process with the Josephite development, it wasn't known until substantially later, at least to me, that you had one of your members on their board. So that was a very good, I guess, strategic thing on your part to be able to look at their books and see how they were doing or not doing. And as we
Sorry,
were,
what are you talking about?
Well, I'm just talking about how some of the concerns we had with the development of the Josephite development. We had concerns about how the hospital was going to manage the emergency room exit with the or entrance with the cut through, and all that time you already had one of your guys on the board at Providence.
No, that's not true. That's not true. That's not true.
Well,
our CFO joined the board well after that. Our CFO, after we had gotten the Josephites project pretty far along in the process, because of the relationship we developed with Providence as part of that process, our CFO was then asked to join the board.
Are you saying?
And he was only on the board for, I think, 6 months.
The whole PUD process, the PUD process, that your CFO wasn't involved?
No, he was only on the board of Providence for about 6 months, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so that's just not true. Now, what you may be confusing, Lorenz, you may be confusing, there was a board member of Providence. And by the way, for the folks on the call, this is not unusual for major Catholic charities to have major Catholic members of the community on their board who are in the real estate world. So there was the head of acquisitions and development for Bozzuto, was a longstanding board member of Providence Hospital for over a decade, and a large person who contributes to the Catholic charities community. And he was trying to develop the townhomes down Varnum Street, which they were buying from Providence Hospital. So you might be confusing us with that. Frank was only on the board for about 6 months before Providence changed their direction, and it was had nothing to do with, there was absolutely nothing to do with anything we were doing on the Josephite site. We had the Josephite site purchased well before that, or at least under contract well before that.
Well,
It's important that you raise this, because I worry
I'm not
sometimes
disputing that. I'm disputing the fact that when we had concerns about impact studies for the emergency room entrance, and that was,
that would have had nothing to do with Frank Connors. I mean, I appreciate that you raise these things, though, because I think sometimes, Lorenz, you hear rumors and then you assume the worst and you assume issues, and it's good that we can air these things out, because there's absolutely no truth to what you're talking about.
Okay.
Full disclosures, what I think in moving forward, if that can be more.
100%. I'm fully with you.
Things that didn't look good and still don't look good, but particularly many of us as 200 footers that were given little or no concern about the you guys moving forward. Everyone else had something. North Michigan Park, a couple of ANCs, including Adrian Jordan, who sold us out because he came to you guys and pretty much gave you the hand stamp, and everyone up through Emily is all in agreement. Of course, I'm not blaming you, Emily, because I mean, you came on late, but I'm just upset about the lack of due process and representation, and pretty much equality under the law. I mean,
Evan, Lorenz, I appreciate your comments and concerns, but I think I want to make sure that some of this is in the past, and we've moved past that, and now we are on. UIO is developing as Evan said. We don't know yet anything about the Providence project, but as we learn more information, I absolutely will be providing that to the community. I'm going to do that shortly with the Kennedy School project to be transparent. So I would absolutely expect that I would do the same with anything that happens with Providence. So with that, I want to move on. So thank you to everyone from EYA who attended. Thank you to the artist. I can't remember your name, I'm sorry. And Jason and Evan. So thank you so much. And Evan and Jason, I do want to thank you for providing the community with weekly or bi-weekly updates of what's happening with the project. I do post those to the community listserv so that we have those. So I appreciate you guys, being open and honest. I also want to just really quickly, while you two are on the call, I know that over the last several months, we've had a number of complaints from residents about truck traffic going down the streets that, in the wrong places and everything. And so I appreciate your quick and rapid response to following up with those companies that are doing that, trying to nail them down, to tell them not to go down those streets, and work with our community on that. So thank you so much for all your help with that.
Yep. Thank you all for your time tonight.
Yeah, thank you all. Have a great night.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Okay. So we're going to move on to the next thing on our agenda, which is I want to share with you. I sent it out on the email list the other day. I sent out on the email the other day about the, let me just pull it up on my screen here. I'm going to try and share. Okay. Can you all see my screen? Someone acknowledge that they can see the screen. Yes?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thanks. Okay, so as you may have heard rumblings about, and I think I mentioned this at a meeting not too long ago, they are going to be doing some improvement along Taylor Street. Eventually, we are supposed to be getting bike lanes, but that's not part of this project. This work is including repair of sidewalk sections, curbs and gutters, and resurfacing of the roadway pavement within the project limits. It's estimated, as it says, to take approximately 4 weeks to complete, weather permitting. And it's supposed to start on Monday, May 16th. So I did send out a thing about that. If you live on Taylor Street or know somebody who lives on Taylor Street, they are going to be putting up temporary emergency no parking signs along those streets. So I just wanted to make sure everyone is aware of that and prepared for that. If you live in this area, in the area of that, in the 200 feet of that area, you should have received this letter in the mail as well. Are there any questions about that? Okay. Let me just make a note of that. I'm trying to take minutes and do the meeting at the same time is a lot.
Emily, what 100 block of Taylor is this, you say?
1 second. It is, it's Taylor Street between Harewood Road. So it's going to go all the way down from the top of the hill, past the 7-Eleven, over the bridge and to 10th Street. So the 800 block of Taylor Street. The 800 block section, which is in my single member district between the Puerto Rico and 10th Street.
Okay.
So Emily, you said they're installing bike lanes as well. So
Not as part of this project.
Okay.
That's coming. That is coming later.
Okay, but when they do the bike lanes, how is that going to affect the folks that park?
Yeah,
in those apartments.
Yeah, thank you, Deidre. I think we had when we had the meeting with the developers. Actually, where are we on the agenda? All right, I'm gonna switch up the agenda a little bit. Next on the agenda, if you saw the Google link, is Webster Street, but I'm gonna talk about Taylor Street since this affects that. So just to give you, Deidre, I'm gonna answer your question, but just to give everyone an update on the Taylor Street project. As you know, we voted on that at our last special SMD meeting for those 2 buildings. The 2 developers presented us projects that we requested they be similar. They came back to us and did that. We approved those at the last meeting. Those came in front of the ANC during the April meeting last week, and those were approved at the ANC meeting. So those 2 projects are moving forward. What I can tell you is that one of those other buildings on that street has been sold to another owner who owns one of the building right next door. I have been in touch with him. The developers who are doing the other 2 projects also have been in touch with him. My desire is that if any of those other owners are going to develop those buildings, that they try and do them in a similar format and perhaps work with the current developers of these other 2 buildings. I can't guarantee that, but obviously they'd have to come in front of the community, and we do everything we could so that we can try and do that, because I don't want to end up with 10 different style buildings on this short strip of block. But during those discussions, we did talk about the fact that there has been a proposed bike lane on Taylor Street. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's only on one side of Taylor Street. So there would be parking on the other side. They would not be taking it from both, just one. But they would just be doing it on one side. Deidre, I don't know any more than that because it's not been officially proposed yet. They've not sent us a plan. But I do know that it is being discussed, and obviously as soon as we know more, they will send a letter to me and notify me, and I will provide that information to the community. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions about the Taylor Street building projects? Okay. Okay, I want to ask, is there anybody from the area of Webster Street and where 13th changes to Sergeant Road changes to 13th? Okay, we've got one person. Anybody else from that area? Okay, I am sorry that there's not more people. I'm trying to see if there's anybody else. Okay, I'm sorry that there's not more people. Mickey, I appreciate you coming on, and maybe you can share this with your neighbors. What we need to do is talk about that corner and what we want to do in terms of if we want to request a traffic study with DDOT. I know that this had come up with the EYA development and whether or not we want to propose a 4-way stop there. Mickey, do you have a sense from your neighbors what they're wanting?
Well, I got a sense from the neighbors in my block, which is the 4400 block of 13th Street.
Mm-hmm.
That definitely a stop sign has always been needed at that intersection, even before the Josephite development, the EYA development, and now that the development's there and it's a 4-way intersection instead of a 3-way intersection, traffic signs, stop signs there are inevitable. They just need to happen.
So what I
And that's
can
the
tell
sense
you
of
with
your-
let me just real quick with the EYA development, what's going to happen is they are putting a stop sign at their one section of that four-ways area, right? And it's going to be one way out. So on Allison, so on 12th Street, it's going to be one way and one way out, and then that on Sergeant Road is going to be one way
Sure.
turn, right? So,
Yeah.
but I believe I see that Evan is still on. Are you still on, Evan? He must have walked away, but I should have thought to talk about this while Evan was on the call, because I had asked him about this, and it's my understanding that for some reason, either the community or DDOT had declined to have a four-way stop there initially, and I wasn't part of that discussion when that happened initially, so
Sure.
I don't recall, but we as a community can absolutely put in a traffic safety study request for that intersection and ask to have that made a four-way stop. I just need to know that there's a members of the community who want that.
Yes, because
Okay.
Emily, if you actually stand on the corner of Webster and 13th Street and look south on 13th Street, there's a little bit of a hill, and it's almost impossible to see what traffic is coming up from Varnum Street. And I've been in this house for 20 years. And here for 20 years, and that's always been an issue of crossing 13th Street at Webster. Is there's a blind spot, and there are more children in this neighborhood than before. There are more dogs in this neighborhood than before, and I do know that my neighbors I'm sorry my neighbors didn't show up either, but I do know that my immediate neighbors would not have a problem and would support putting in an all-way traffic.
So
stop
Mickey,
sign
what I'd
there.
like you to do is, can you have my email address? It's 5A03. Okay.
I do.
Can you email me tonight or tomorrow, and let's coordinate submitting that traffic study request, and then I want to make sure it gets as much attention as possible with DDOT.
Okay.
So it's helpful if we make that a coordinated effort.
Okay,
Emily?
I'll email you tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Emily,
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
this is Ms. Dawson, and I concur with Mickey. I'm at the 1300 block of Allison.
Okay.
And the traffic that comes down 13 or Sergeant Road that comes down that street, there is a hill there. And even I've noticed that we have a four-way stop at Allison and Sergeant Road, and cars go through the four-way stop there.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then, yeah, so I agree with Mickey.
Yeah, this is totally off topic, but we have a really bad issue with the four-way stop at the corner of 12th and Buchanan. I mean, there are crashes there constantly, and it's something we definitely need to get looked at. So I can appreciate that. So thank you. So Mickey, just be in touch with me and we will coordinate response to request with DDOT, okay?
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, moving on. Let's see here. What do we got next? Okay, so I just want to make sure there is no one left on the call from let me just see here. From the presentation related to McDonald's, correct? Just want to make sure, and I'll explain why in a minute. Okay. Okay, so the reason I asked that question, everyone, is because Holland and Knight is representing McDonald's, and Holland and Knight is also representing the Kennedy School. And there was some confusion with the representatives from Holland and Knight. When I asked them to attend this meeting, I sent them the agenda and they saw that the Kennedy School was on there. And they asked if they were supposed to present on that tonight. And I said, no, this is just supposed to be a community discussion. So I wanted to make sure that no one from Holland and Knight was on the call still. So as I've mentioned over the last several months, the Kennedy School is proposing to develop their land. And as I mentioned when Evan was on the call, I had reached out to both the developer, I take that back. I had reached out to the owner of the Kennedy School from the Catholic Charities and the owner of Providence Hospital Ascension. And I made it very clear to them that with that large piece of land, we would absolutely expect that those two development projects, as they move forward, would hopefully work together. Because as Evan noted, this community has been asking for a long time for various things like a playground, a dog park, a soccer field, things like that. And there's just way too much land between those two properties to not give us something, especially when we're going to be losing this land. I understand that this is private property, right? So we don't necessarily, have a right in terms of the property, but, we can provide input, we can hold them accountable. There's all sorts of things we can do to make them work with the community. So let me tell you what is happening with the Kennedy School project. The Kennedy School, as some of you may know, has been there for many years, and the building is in disrepair. If I've seen the inside, if you've not seen the inside, it is definitely in disrepair. And it is a school that serves the needs of children and families with disabilities. And so they've been a wonderful neighbor. We love having them as a neighbor. However, they need a new school. But in order to have the money for a new school, they need to sell off some of their land. They are proposing building a new school, not in the same location as the current school. It's a little bit farther towards, it's essentially where that open green space is now that everybody uses for their dogs and with their kids. That's where they're going to put the new school. And then they're going to knock down the old school and build townhouses. Now, they are going to be putting a playground for the school use only, because it's a special needs playground. So it's restricted access. It's not going to be open to the community. I can tell you that they are proposing some land space to be held off being developed, to be using with whatever Providence decides to develop. I can tell you that they did try to coordinate efforts with Providence. Providence has not been ready. I have continued to talk to them. I've continued to push for them to move forward. And I'm actually having a conversation with somebody from Providence tomorrow to continue to try and push this effort to get them to move forward, so that these two projects happen. They don't have to happen exactly at the same time, but so that they happen relatively close to each other, so we can have some idea of how this land can be used. When the developers from Holland and Knight and the developers came to me a couple weeks ago and shared with me their intentions, and I asked them, have you been in touch with Providence? And they said, not recently, we're still waiting. And I shared with them again how important I thought it was that they coordinate efforts with Providence. And so I'm hoping that they are going to be reaching out to them again. I believe they are, but we'll see about that. But I wanted to at least share with you what was going to be coming down the pike. And I think they're looking to move at a pretty quick pace. I would say that their plan is, once the permitting process is done, is to, I think, hopefully have the new school building built within the next 12 months, once their permitting process, once they get all the permits. Let me just say this. There are two separate permitting requests. One is for the school, one is for the houses. So when we meet, we're going to have a special meeting in 2 weeks. When we meet, I would like us to vote on those two projects separately. And let me tell you why I want to vote on separately. Because it's okay to support the new school without supporting the housing. You can vote whatever how you want, but that is okay, or you can support both of them, however you want to do it, and we'll take a vote at that meeting. But I want to make sure everyone's clear that, you know, this is two projects. And the other thing that's important to note is that the money that is being raised from the sale of the land and the houses, the development of the houses, is only to fund the new school. And I don't believe, from what they shared with me, that they have a lot of room to play with financially. If you remember when the EYA discussion happened, we talked about, do they need to build this high? Do they need to build this many houses? I'm happy to have that discussion with this developer. I think it would be worthwhile for us to have that discussion with this developer. But I want to make sure everyone's aware that, and I've asked them to present to us their numbers so we know specifically what we're talking about. Having said all that, I'm happy to open this discussion up for questions.
Emily, how many townhouses are they proposing? I heard 81.
80.
Emily, that's a lot. And they're entering and exiting on Buchanan.
Yeah, Deidre, I agree with you that is a lot, which is why I said that is actually specifically, Deidre, the reason why I said we can vote on the two projects separately.
Okay.
Because I think go ahead.
I think that, you know, I said at this point, and I'm just speaking on me and some of my neighbors that I spoke to, I just think we overpopulating here. I'm not opposing to the school,
right?
But 81 additional townhomes, I'm sorry, I am not comfortable with that. So I understand why you're saying, and I agree with you, we should vote on each project separately.
Yeah, Deidre, I appreciate that. And one of the things that I've talked to Commissioner Fletcher as well, because his residents are within 200 feet. And they are going to be invited to the special meeting with the developer in 2 weeks. And he and I have talked about reaching out to the Board of Zoning and potentially requesting a postponement of the development of the townhouses until we can get some of these details worked out. But we are going to make it very clear to them that we're not requesting a postponement of the development of the school, because we want to share that we are in support of the school for the very reasons you said, Deidre. Carmen.
You kind of addressed the question that I had, and that was the zoning. If they're tearing down the school and building the townhomes, 80 townhomes look like what 12th Street is going to be now.
That's what EYA looks like right now in my neighborhood, and no one gave a damn then, because a lot of you guys in North Michigan Park didn't have any objections to that. That's my issue.
No, well, we had objections to the 200 and some townhomes that they initially wanted to build. But again, if you own property and you want to build something on your property, you know, they work with the community and and they came up with the 87, which I thought we all agreed that was okay.
No, we did not all agree.
But I don't want to talk about the EYA development.
Yeah, and I'm just saying that now that it's only 80 in your neighborhood, and we're talking about what's potentially going to happen when it does get to Providence Hospital. You know, the city by right, I mean, given the comprehensive plan, it's wide open. This is what the mayor has been wanting, you know, to turn DC into Manhattan. And that's what's happening.
Okay.
I do want to, real quick, I just want to correct one thing I said. Hold on one second, Carmen. I just want to correct one thing I said earlier. Deidre, it is 81. I double checked and it is 81. But go ahead, Carmen.
And Lorenzo, a lot of us did support you all with that EYA. I know the Newtown folks, we were right there alongside with you all fighting that fight. So I understand, you know, what you're saying, but some
I mean,
of your
when
other
they put-
neighbors did fight for you.
Yeah,
And we
well,
still
the
will.
idea that they were gonna put over 100, and to begin with, that was just that was just to get a temperature on the thing. That was.
Oh,
so
yeah,
to begin with.
absolutely, absolutely.
So, you know, they're happy with the 80, and now they're selling those 700, what was initially $700,000 townhomes are going for 900,000. So I guess if you're interested in your property value, that's a good thing. I'm not so concerned about that because it's gonna have a tax impact. It's already displacing people. And
Right.
affordability, it flies in the face of all this about affordability and equity.
Okay, and that is one of the questions I raised to them is that I did raise the fact that we have a number of elderly residents in the community. And I know that, the property tax is going to be an issue. Carmen, I'm sorry, you weren't finished. Go ahead.
I forgot my question, but I did want to indicate that the homes that are being built are not in North Michigan Park. They're still in Michigan Park.
Correct.
Just like the property on 12th Street. That's still part of Michigan Park.
Right.
Yeah, Buchanan is the center
Dividing
line.
line.
Michigan
Correct.
Park. Yeah. And that's why I guess they're doing it in Michigan Park, because I mean, I got to take my hats off to you in North Michigan Park. You guys pretty much are able to be in control of more of your destiny than we ever have been.
Okay, are there other questions related to this project?
This is Steve. Can you hear me?
I'm sorry. I've got Steve, if you could raise your hand, that'd be great. I've got a couple of other hands raised. CJ, go ahead.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm new to this. Catherine Jenkins on Crediton Street. I have a question. With this many houses being developed, I can't imagine that there's no retail coming. I think that's my question, because I'm late to the conversation, so I don't know if that's already been discussed or.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobs. No, there is no retail coming with the Kennedy School development. As for the Providence development, obviously we don't know what's going to happen with that, but that is certainly a potential.
I guarantee almost a dime to a dozen of donuts that there will be plenty of retail if Providence gets developed. It was prospectively talked about in a positive way in terms of some amenities to the community, along with a fitness center or something like that. But I mean, again, you look at the size of that campus and there's no way they can't do something beyond just housing.
Lorenz, my understanding is they're going to just it's not going to be anything like what was originally proposed that they came to share with us about at the many community meetings we had. So I think we just have to hold tight and wait until we hear more about what's going to happen.
Well, if EYA says life within walking distance, then people who live in the development currently underway would like to have some local retail. I'm almost
Lorenz,
sure.
I'm not saying that they're not. I'm not saying that it's not. I don't want to put speculation out there of what it may or may not be until we know for sure, because the plan has changed a dozen times since we started talking about this 2 years ago. Steve, go ahead.
My concern is the density of the housing, and that if the density of the housing is no more than that for the Newtown area, which all have little yards in the front and in the back and parking, they used to have garages, that would be the target density that I think we should ask for, as far as, number of people or housing per square footage, in the area. And if they're going to bring in 80 houses, they better bring in parking for all those houses and visitors.
So let's talk about the parking for a second, because this is a question I wanted to ask the community. With the EYA development, we negotiated RPP parking for the residents within a certain radius of the development. And the way that the HOA contract reads with EYA is that the residents who live within that development are not eligible for RPP parking, and they can only park on their property. And so therefore the residents who live within the area who want guaranteed parking by their houses are the only ones eligible to get RPP parking zone stickers. So my question is when we go to the developer and say, this is what the community wants, do the residents on Buchanan Street, is that something you all are wanting? I know there's a couple of you on here.
Want to make sure that parking doesn't go away for us, yes.
So, Miss Esther, so you live on Buchanan?
Yes, I live right across from where the exit of Kennedy School is right now.
Okay.
Like across the street.
So yes, so as a homeowner on that street, if we requested RPP parking for Buchanan, you would be able to get RPP parking for your car in front of your house, or well, on that block. I want to make sure everyone's aware that there is a fee for RPP parking. I believe they raised it this year to $50 for the first car, and it goes up after that.
And is there a limit for how many cars?
I believe it's 3.
But the point of your suggestion is that the new 80 residents may not get that permit, right?
They may not. That would be what we would negotiate with the developer.
Right.
Right, but that doesn't include when
But
they
that-
have company. Or
Absolutely.
they don't
That
have
includes
enough
No,
spots on
holidays.
their
No,
development.
it absolutely does, Deidre, include when they have company, because because they will also have they would be required to have visitor parking on their lot, just like EYA will have visitor parking in their development. And visitors cannot park in the RPP parking areas without a guest permit, and the only way they can get a guest permit for RPP parking is from a resident who has approved RPP parking.
Wait, they can park there for 2 hours.
No, not.
What?
Yeah, with the RPP, I think it's 2 hours, Emily.
You're right. You're right. It
Right.
is 2 hours. You're right. I apologize.
Except on
There
a
are
weekend
different
when
types of
RPP
parking.
But they can park the whole weekend because the RPP as it stands now expires at 8:30 Monday through Friday, and it's free on the weekend because
So,
the RPP
Lorenz-
as it exists now is only from Monday through Friday.
So Lorenz,
Right.
I am working on that with DDOT with your area, because there are different types of RPP parking, and I'm not quite sure why your area was given RPP parking with those restrictions, because you're right, that doesn't help. What we wanted was evenings and weekends. So with this process, I would absolutely make sure that we got RPP parking that was for evenings and weekends. And Deidre, you're right, there is a 2-hour thank you, Uchenna. Uchenna just clarified that there's no limit on the number of cars for each additional cars, but it's $150 for each additional car after 3. So that is something that we would have to work on. But what I want to do now is just clarify some of the things we want. So we would like to consider RPP parking. What are some of the other things? Here's the other thing, because they're not doing a PUD, they are doing a BZA on the Board of Zoning as opposed to a PUD. They are not required to do an amenities package. EYA did an amenities package. Lisa, I see your hand. I haven't forgotten about you. I just wanted to let you know. They're not required to do an amenities package. Had they gone the PUD route, they would have been. But that doesn't mean we cannot put pressure on them to provide one. They may not be obligated to one, but I believe it would be a good neighbor policy, and the board at BZA likes it when developers are good neighbors. If we did come up with some type of amenities package, so one of my concerns is that, are they going to have enough space for some of the things we want? They may not have enough space on their own land for a dog park, a soccer field, those types of things. But they would when they combine their land with Providence. I can tell you that they're not currently planning on putting a play space or tot lot for the residents or for anybody else. The only playground, as I said, is going to be the one that is part of the school that's not going to be open to the residents. So I guess one of the things I want to know are what are some of the other things that we want as a community with that development?
Okay, Emily, quick question. If the community agrees to allow them to build the townhomes, do we have to agree to the 81? Because I know with EYA, we went back and forth to get that number lowered to a more reasonable number.
So this is one of the differences between doing a PUD and a BZA. We absolutely do not have to agree to that number. However, they can move forward. We can make it difficult for them, and we can work with the Board of Zoning to put pressure on them to work with us. But it's a very fine line between, you know, working with them and, you know, stopping them from doing what they want to do. So what I'd like to do is work with them to make sure we get some community benefits. If they're going to build townhouses, no matter what number it is, I want to make sure we are getting something in exchange for the community. I want to address, some people have their hands raised. Lisa, you have your hand raised.
Okay, my question is in regards to the Kennedy Institute project. Does that include the Seton House, or does it stop right before that?
Stops before
Okay.
that. The Seton House is part of Providence.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yep. John, you had a question.
Yeah, so I had looked at the BZA application and the map of proposed tree removal and what's being preserved. And it looked like a lot of the trees were being removed. A few on the south end of the property were being preserved as heritage trees. The tall trees, if I read this right, right on the edge of Buchanan Street were going to survive, but the cherry trees a little further up the hill there looked like they were slated for removal. And I think tree cover in general, preserving as much of that as possible is something I would be concerned about, and especially those cherry trees, because I think they are a very nice feature on Buchanan.
Yeah, I agree with you. Thank you. Right. Sonia.
Hey, Emily, it's actually Penny. I have a question about the construction and the damage that may occur. It's not a whole lot of space between the construction and the homes on Buchanan, as well as potentially over here where we are in Crittenden. How do we work with the builders to be reimbursed for any damage that may occur to the homes?
Yep, and that's a great point, because EYA has built that into their agreement. So one of the things we will do is ask them to come up with a plan. Hang on one second. I'm just going to make a note of this. We will do is ask them to come up with a development plan in terms of their construction process, limiting the traffic, making sure they stick within the hours required, and then you know, doing tests to make sure that you know, of the houses that are immediately in the vicinity, and you know, pre-construction evaluations, and then during construction evaluations, and then post construction evaluations to see about damage. So that's definitely something we should talk with them about when they come on to our meeting.
Okay, and when that happens, is there a particular radius in terms of how far? I mean, I know I've talked to you about all the trucks coming up and down Crittenden, and they're still coming up and down Crittenden, that I have a crack in my bedroom wall that wasn't there. So, you know, what is the radius of homes that will potentially or could be affected with that?
Yeah, that's a good question, Penny, and I don't have an answer to that, but I can do some research on that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Emily, it's Steve again.
Hi, Steve.
Since the properties abut with the Providence Hospital, and you're trying to get them to work together on their plan, could it be a requirement or a request that all of their or most of their construction traffic go through the Providence property to develop those houses, or even to build the school, that they access the property from the Providence side rather than from the Buchanan Street side?
You know, see, that's a great point, and I can bring that up to BZA when we go in front of BZA. And we can also ask them when they come to a meeting with us. Because we can come up with a plan that says, like, just with EYA, right? Like their trucks are supposed to go through on certain streets. So we can come up with that same type of plan for this.
Right.
And Emily, to piggyback on Steve's question, I'm assuming that they're going to do some kind of traffic survey
They
Because
will.
as you see now, folks are parking on both sides of Buchanan. So if cars are coming down both ways, one has to, heed to the other vehicle. So have they taken that into consideration as well?
Yeah, that's another good question that we can ask them. There's a couple hands raised, and I want to go in order of hands raised. So please, if everybody can use the hand raise feature. So Kiwi, you're next. And Kiwi, could you share your name so I have it for my records?
Say I was before Kiwi, but go ahead.
I have them in order, Lorenz. Go ahead, Kiwi. I guess not. Okay, Lorenz, go ahead.
Okay, so two things. Who I think someone who lives on Crittenden was talking about a crack in their wall. And as you know, we've been complaining here in the 1300 block of Allison that it's not so much traffic to the west of us, but South Dakota Avenue. So you need to be very cognizant that that could be a factor as much as anything else. I mean, Sonia Dollison and I, well, she's got records for the last several years about that issue. The other thing is that what I know, looking at the comprehensive plan, and I haven't looked at the most recent, but I mean, this whole area is scheduled for upzoning, which means density. And Providence Hospital, as I was going through my litigation with EYA, they just looked at Providence, even though it was an institution, that was already zoned high density or higher density than what we have in the residential area. So that's going to be a hard thing. And like you said, Emily, that they're going through a BZA. Well, it won't be a PUD. So what is it that they're going through? Is it the BA? What's the option they're going with?
They're just going through BZA.
Yeah. So I mean, they're going to probably try to exercise their matter of right that way, and so I would encourage everybody here to get involved, get organized, start attending these council meetings, start attending the BZA meetings, show up, and then also push back on, well, make sure you're voting for the right person. I mean, BZA just had, City Council just had a hearing on reappointing the chair of the BZA a couple of weeks ago. I attended that, but maybe to no avail because it's almost a rubber stamp on the rubber stamp. But we got to show up. It's very important. We got to get organized. And even though I got to give credit to Emily about a lot of things, but it's really, we got to get more grassroots about a lot of this stuff.
Okay. Okay, John, you have a question.
Yeah, I tried to get a sense of this from the zoning application, but couldn't. Do you know if there's going to be substantial regrading of the site if the plan goes through as it is right now?
I would assume so because
okay.
There's a hill there where they're planning to put the school.
So right on the field to the east. Do you know if that would also be the case for the site where they'll build the?
I would assume
the townhomes.
So. I would assume so.
Because I just was especially curious because they have a 40-foot height limit, I think it was, on the townhomes. So that whether that is starting from a level that's already 20 feet above street level versus roughly at street level obviously makes a big difference in terms of the effective height.
Sure. Okay. Thanks for the question. Kiwi, go ahead.
This is Keely, Emily.
Keely. Hello, Keely.
I apologize. I was unable to unmute myself. But I have a concern about the residents on Buchanan Street potentially having to get residential parking permits because of development in another area. Is there some way we can have the developer pay for those permits for the current residents
We can't have them pay for it, unfortunately. But what we need to do as a community is to vote on whether the residents want it. And just by voting on whether the residents want it doesn't start the process. What we would be asking for is asking the developer to work with us to get to shepherd that process along through DDOT, although it doesn't really require a whole lot of effort on their part. But what it does require is that we would have to circulate a petition down the block, and you have to have 51% of the residents on the block sign the petition. And if you have 51 residents, then DDOT will put in the RPP parking. But we would want to make sure that all of the residents on that block were aware of all of the expectations that go along with having RPP parking on that block.
You better do the side streets too.
Well, so every street would have to be done separately, but yes, I mean, so we'd look at 10th Street, we'd look at 8th Street. And we, just determine what we want to do in terms of the zone parking. Okay. Okay. We are coming up on 9 o'clock, so I want to, make sure we are respectful of everyone's time. Okay, so as you're aware, this is a big project. It is moving forward. And hopefully we will be able to have a good discussion with them. That meeting, please put it on your calendars, is May 19th. It will be at 7 o'clock. And if you can please help me communicate that to all of your neighbors, particularly if you live on Buchanan Street. Please share this with your neighbors. I want to make sure that everybody on Buchanan Street is aware of this project. So if you live on Buchanan Street, please make sure. One other thing I want to just, Uchenna had asked a question in the chat that's not related to this project necessarily, but a while back, we had worked with DDOT to get sidewalks put up on Buchanan Street up towards Puerto Rico for safety. They had done a study, they had approved that. It got delayed due to COVID and some other things, but that's already been approved, and it is expected to happen within the next year or so. Uchenna, you have a question about that?
So the comment was submitted related to this project. If you look in the case file.
Okay.
For this project, one was submitted on April 20th. It looks by a resident on 7th Street, and it discusses, some sidewalk issues with and being connected to the rest of the neighborhood, So I wanted to make sure you were aware of that.
Yep, I am. I actually have been in touch with that resident on 7th Street. He and I have been in multiple conversations. So I appreciate that. Thanks. Anna, you had a question. Do you want to share your comment that you shared in the chat?
This is actually Anna's husband, Jan.
Okay.
I just want to clarify that, a couple of times you sort of said, we negotiated with EYA as, these things like RPP parking, the pre-construction inspection, so on. But these things really were not very easily agreed to by EYA. It wasn't until we sort of, had legal help and, really tried to, delay the construction and bring it down from 80 homes to like 60. That finally we had a legal settlement with EYA in which they agreed to those things. So just want to, sound a word of caution to say, yes, we can ask for all of these things, but I just don't want to make it seem like it's so simple to just negotiate these things.
No, I appreciate that. And I don't anticipate this is going to be simple. I anticipate there's going to be a lot of pushback because this is, even though the other one was a PUD, I know you went to took the legal steps, but this isn't even a PUD. So there is no expectation of them doing this whatsoever. And so, but I have talked to someone from the Board of Zoning, and they have said that they do look more kindly on good neighbor policies. So You know, they want to see a good faith effort on the part of the developer working with the neighborhood. So if we do not see that, I will absolutely, and you all are welcome to as well, raise our voices loud and clear with BZA that that has not happened. And ask, as I said, for a postponement until we can work through some of these issues. So, you know, we will see what happens with that. So thank you for providing that feedback about the EYA process. Okay. So I want to, we're at 9 o'clock. I want to be respectful, as I said, of everyone's time. Are there, Carmen, you have a question?
I do. I just had one question. Where did you say they were going to install the sidewalks on Buchanan?
So it's supposed to be sometime in the between now and the next fiscal year.
On both sides of Buchanan?
No, just one.
Just on the
North side.
Okay. All righty. Thanks.
Thank you. Yep. Okay. Other comments, questions, things people want to talk about tonight? Any other community concerns that you think I should be aware of? I know I want to mention, and there's one caller on the call tonight who has raised this concern to me, but several others have. I know we are having an ongoing issue with rats in the neighborhood. On multiple occasions, I've gotten calls from people, and I've put in calls to Department of Health, and they've sent somebody out to treat. And sometimes they've come back. And so we've called again and had them come back again. We seem to be having a significant issue with them on the alley behind Crittenden, but that goes between Crittenden and Delafield and 10th Street, and the residents in those blocks. So I did reach out to them today. And I believe they have been in contact with the residents. Is that correct, Ms. Johnson? Did they reach out to you today? Still on the call. Yes, did they reach out to you today? She just unmuted. No? Okay.
Emily, this is
Yes.
Catherine Jenkins.
Yes, that's
I don't know if you sent the email, but I did see something about May 10th that they will be coming out.
Great.
And okay.
Yeah, he also said that they were going to be calling you, Ms. Jenkins. I don't know if he did. He said he was going to be reaching out to both you and the other resident.
Okay. So I did see a petition. So do we need to circulate this petition and have everyone sign, or what do we need to do?
So I asked about that. Let me just see. I'm trying to remember what he said. I asked if we need to get all the residents in the area to sign that, because I would like him to inspect more than just your two properties, because those are the only two addresses I gave him. But I've not heard back from him as of when I sent that email this afternoon. So I'm hoping he'll get back to me. But what I would suggest is you talk to your neighbors, and if other ones are having an issue with rats and want someone to come look at them, please have them reach out, submit a 311 request, but also then have them contact me. And the more people I can submit to them to say there's a problem, the better chance I think we're going to have of them really doing an effective treatment in that area.
Okay, because I was going to start this weekend with the petition and just go walk around and start it this weekend.
Great. Sounds good. Sounds good. Sounds good.
Right.
And then send it to me and I will forward it on.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, well, hopefully no one else is having rat issues. But again, if there are ever concerns, please let me know. You may have noticed actually on some of the trash cans by the bus stops, there are now signs that say don't dump personal trash. I think those are there because we had an ongoing issue with one trash can where one neighbor was putting their trash in that trash can literally daily. Even though they were repeatedly told not to do it by multiple authorities, they continued to do it. And so finally that trash can was removed. So that could no longer be a problem. I think you've seen some of those signs. Deidre, did you have another question?
Yes, Emily. I don't know if anybody brought this to your attention about the light at Taylor and Puerto Rico. When you're coming over the bridge to make the left onto Puerto Rico, when the light on the opposite side of the street, it used to, before it turned green, it gave us enough time to make that left.
Yep.
But now that break is no longer in the light. So
That's correct.
At rush hour and so forth, that lane backs up.
Right. They did that, Deidre. So what happened was, is if you remember several meetings ago, I mentioned that I met with DDOT on that corner and mentioned all of the issues and concerns with that corner. And they were in the process of doing an evaluation. And one of the things that they said they were going to change immediately was that light cycle for a number of safety reasons. I think it's one step in their process. It's my understanding they're also going to be fixing the crosswalks, the curb cuts, and the walk signals as well. But I have asked them about that, about putting in an arrow or
something, yes.
Something, right. And so that is all part of the conversation I had with them. And I will re-engage with them to ask where they are with the rest of that plan.
Okay, right, because we need we have more folks in this community, and then you're talking about the folks on 12th Street, and then this additional housing.
Right.
We need some way to be able to turn onto Puerto Rico Avenue, because that's a main thoroughfare now. So
yep, they're supposed to be doing more to that intersection. I have not gotten final details of that. Last I heard that they had not finalized that plan, but I will reach out to them and see where they are with that.
Okay, thanks.
Carrie.
Thank you, Emily. With all the discussion of RPP, I want to remind people there's a big difference between having signs up and paying for the stickers and having effective enforcement. I'm not getting any enforcement here by the charter school, and it's been months. I have backed up complaints that are never enforced. So I don't even see the value in paying for the sticker because the parking's out of control.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. If you want to send me an email on that, I can try and follow up, because you're right. We need to do better about enforcement. Let me know. I want to just also mention in regard to Mundo Verde, which is a school that Carrie's talking about. I'm very disappointed in their new administration. The first administration was very willing to work with us. The current administration, although it keeps changing, and it's my understanding it's going to change again, that they are not as responsive to my emails and working with us. They are in the process of expanding. I did work with them on that proposal to expand, but they, every time we come to them with complaints, and Carrie has recently come to them with a complaint about the students, or actually I think that was Steve, came to them with a complaint about students climbing in the trees and damaging the trees, and they're just not as responsive as I'd like to see them be. So I continue to raise frustration with them, but I'm not real happy with them right now, because as I said, initially when they came into the community, they were great to work with, and now they're not. And I don't know what's necessarily changed, except for I know that some of the administration has changed, but I will continue to push with them, because as long as they're in the community, they need to understand that they also need to work with the residents, and that's critically important. There was something else I was going to mention real quick. No, I can't remember what it was. Give me 1 second. Let me think, see if I can think of what it was. I can't think of what it was at the moment. But any other questions, comments, community concerns that people want to raise? I hope you all saw that, unfortunately there was an accident in the community just the other day, that terrible accident with the bus. Carmen, do we have is Carmen still on? I don't see that Carmen's still on. I don't know. Oh, yeah, Deidre put in the chat. You're talking about on Puerto Rico, right, Deidre?
Yes.
Yeah, I will. We have raised that issue multiple times with DDOT about trimming that area. And I will raise that issue again. Okay. Oh, I know the area issue I was going to raise. I had a resident on Crittenden Street ask me about LED lighting in the street lights, and supposedly that's part of the Vision Zero plan to go long term, but individual blocks can request that, as they desire. Then they'll come and do an evaluation. So it is possible we may get some more LED lights on the street lights in the near future. Okay, anything else? Okay. All right. Well, it's 9:11. I want to let you guys all get some sleep. And then we can meet again in a couple weeks about the Kennedy School. Please help me communicate that out to the residents. I will be sending out the notice about that meeting in the next week. And I want to make sure as many of the residents along Buchanan, because they are the most directly impacted by this, are part of that discussion. Stacy, email me directly. And oh, that is one other thing I can mention real quick. So you all know that rezoning has been going on, and it's in the last and final stages. So I am going to lose some of my current ANC section, some of my single member district, but I will have most of still the part of Michigan Park. I'm losing some of the part on North Michigan Park, according to the current proposed map. If anybody wants to see that, please, I think I posted it on the listserv, but if anybody has questions about the ANC boundaries, feel free to email me. You can also, if you go to the ANC website, the DC ANC website, you can access the current ANC map with all the boundaries, if that's helpful, Stacy, or you can email me and I can direct you how to get that. Okay, everyone, thank you so much.
Emily, what time is that meeting next on the
19th? 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock, okay, thank you.
Deidre, you're talking about the painting marks on the street?
Yes, like once
Yeah.
they complete the construction, somebody has to be responsible for removing the spray paint on the streets. It's like it doesn't make sense to spend millions of dollars to redo DC streets and then let construction projects come and paint the streets back up.
Okay, Deidre, if you can send me an email with pictures of the sections and then the color that shows the colors of the markings, and then how long it's been there,
Okay.
we can follow up, okay?
Okay, thanks.
Okay, yep. All right, any other questions? Otherwise, I'm gonna adjourn the meeting. I think all of us want to get some sleep. So everyone, thank you so much for coming. We had a good turnout tonight. I appreciate you all coming. Feel free to reach out to me anytime. And please, as a reminder, please use my ANC email. That should be the only email you email me at, is 5a03@anc.dc.gov. Anything else, I could get a FOIA request, and I don't want that to happen. So please make sure you use my official ANC email. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emily.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you.
Thank you.